Greetings, welcome, and salutations, listeners of XEP. You are listening to the Xbox Wrap-Up's new format in which we welcome community members, patrons onto the show. We are pretty darn excited about it. If you are listening over on Patreon, thank you so much for the support. You are keeping the lights on and the content coming. If you are listening later on YouTube, please consider supporting XEP over at patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. Today, I am fortunate to welcome my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logan, and two amazing community members who have chosen to help us wrap up our gaming month by talking about what they've been playing and their gaming topics that are on their mind. First, of course, we've got Rick, aka Butch4969. Welcome, sir.
Hi, guys.
I'm so excited to talk to you specifically about your camera. I have questions, comments, and concerns. It's going to be a good time.
Concerns mostly.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, I am fortunate to welcome Clint Coombs here. He looks like he's in the Starfield or orbiting the planet Reach. Welcome.
Yep. Just living that space life. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you guys. Well, guys, it's time. We're here. What has everybody been playing lately? Logan, start with you. What have you been playing this past month?
I have been diving into seasons. A lot of seasons, and now it's the season for Halloween season. So I've been doing seasons of seasons by playing Diablo 4's second season, Call of Duty's The Haunting Halloween season, Sea of Thieves season 10, and Fortnite's current season with Ahsoka and spooky characters. So lots of seasons.
Like seasonal events. Dope. Very cool. We're going to make that a topic for sure. Rick, I want to know what you've been playing, and then we are going to talk camera talk. There's a lot to break down. What's been on your playlist?
It's probably a better question to ask what I haven't been playing, because it's just a never-ending list. But the main ones have been, I've been trying to finish up Resident Evil 4's Separate Ways DLC.
Nice.
Good way through that. Obviously been playing Spider-Man, Lords of the Fallen, Lies of P, some Forza. The Metal Gear Solid Collection just recently came out, so I've been playing some of that. Big Metal Gear fan. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Starfield and Cyberpunk off and on. And then some Battlefield 2042 recently that was on Steam. So I picked that up and I've been playing that with some friends off and on.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down.
There is a lot. There is a lot, yes. I tend to jump around. I don't usually just stick with one thing. I'm kind of crazy.
Nice. So I've been playing some of that, so we're going to have a good talk there.
Yeah.
Clint, what's been in your playlist?
Let's see. Lords of the Fallen. Almost done with Mirage. And then, of course, Alan Wake 2, just the past couple of days, been trying to get into that. And then kind of out of left field was Battlefield 2042 with their updates. It just made it a very great, solid game, which brought me right back into it, and I've been dumping hours into that.
So let's talk Battlefield 2042 then, because you guys have been talking a lot in the Discord. I know my buddy Kev, who refused to show up today because he's ugly, he's been talking nonstop about Battlefield, but we've had him in the COD realm. What's so different now? Because Battlefield was a disaster at launch for its standard.
Yep.
A lot of people were really down on it. What have you guys experienced that has made you want to come back? And seemingly a lot of people are coming back.
For me personally, it was the now that because they had launched with heroes, so it was coming almost like an Overwatch thing, where each class had specific abilities, but they could use any weapon, and it wasn't your standard Battlefield feel to it. So they got rid of that, and now there is actually classes like medic, support, defense, kind of attack. So it's more Battlefield related, and they definitely fixed up the maps a lot. So the spawning's better, just the overall handling. They just really been on top of things, just trying to fix a lot of the stuff the community was yelling about. So that was kind of it for me. It was just basically the classes overhaul.
Gotcha.
I'm curious. Do the world events on the maps, do those still happen fairly frequently? Like in the trailers, they had like the tornado or the dust storm moving through. That's all still kind of present.
I think as long as you're playing Conquest, it's once per guaranteed match, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, Conquest is pretty much every map. On Breakthrough, there's some interior ones, so there's not weather-related ones on that one. But on the outside ones, there definitely is like tornadoes, sandstorms, like really bad lightning storms that'll like EMP your equipment and stuff.
And I remember there was a lot of conversation. They wanted to have like 128 lobbies for people. I recall them saying that they had to move away from that, or they're filling it with bots.
It's still in it. We were surprised when Clint and I played it. What was it, Monday maybe? I did see that was an option, and I didn't know that. I thought they got rid of it, but it is still there.
Yeah, I think they had just brought it back because they did get rid of it because the 128 just did not work with the maps that they had. If sometimes as soon as an enemy got a point, like domination type of thing, it was nearly impossible to get to, no matter what you did. So they rechanged that, lowered the player count. Now, I did play some 128 player games earlier today, and it seemed like those ones are designated for very wide open maps instead of the enclosed ones. So it works a little bit better, but there definitely isn't a huge amount of 128. And honestly, that was a big selling point, but I actually prefer the 64 player.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So is this like your go-to multiplayer experience now, guys?
For me, right now, yeah. Until probably Call of Duty, because I played the beta, and I wasn't thinking about getting Call of Duty at all. But man, it felt really good this time around.
What about you?
Well, for me, Rocket League's probably always going to be my mainstay for the most part. But when it comes to shooters, I've never really attracted too much to multiplayer shooters, with the exception of Battlefield 4 when it came out. So if I was to stick to one, it probably would be this, especially since I now have a pretty good group of friends. We all picked it up along with that Steam sale. And again, I played it with Clint as well, so I do have people to play it with now. So I could see myself sticking with this for some time. And I've always much preferred the feeling of the shooting in Battlefield. I like the more like semi-realistic gun physics and all that stuff compared to the very arcadey and fast-paced and solo play of like Call of Duty. I like Battlefield systems far better.
It's funny you say that because like when I was younger, I thought Call of Duty was the realistic one, and then I'd play Battlefield and be like, oh wow, this is almost like a sim. But now what keeps me in Call of Duty is the extra stuff, the stuff that's not realistic, wearing a spawn armor or having glowy guns.
Right.
That's what keeps me in. Whereas I didn't used to be, I guess, so into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, last Warzone I had to pick up the Rambo pack, and I definitely played more, just being able to be Rambo, jumping around with his sayings and stuff as you're killing people and such.
Yep. So I guess the big question here is like, do you think Battlefield is going to come back or make a big comeback, or is this like setting the ground for just the future games to do well?
So go ahead, Clint. Go ahead. Sorry.
I
was going to say I come in with a little bit of both, actually. I think that the fact that it clearly has done pretty well here the last couple weeks, based on the numbers that we've seen, is a good sign. Might be too little too late for this to really become totally recovered, but I think it's going to be enough that it'll maintain a good enough player base up until the eventual next one comes out, whenever that ends up being. So, because when we were playing, whether it was Clint and I or my other friends last night, no trouble finding games. It was very, very fast. So clearly there is a pretty good like size player base there now.
Yeah, pretty much what Rick said. I think there'll definitely be enough player base now to keep it going. I think back when it first launched, it dropped down to at peak concurrent players of like 10,000, and that was across all consoles, PC. But I think it was Friday, it peaked at like 107,000. It was the most it has seen since it launched. So I think it'll stick around for sure, and if anything, it just kind of refreshes me anyways, knowing that hopefully Battlefield will still continue, because 2042 launched so bad. I was actually quite worried for the franchise itself after that. So I'm glad to see the devs stuck with it and are hopefully keen on making another one. Hopefully.
Well, I was going to say, based on what you just said as well, if we remember when this was coming out, there was a lot of hype surrounding it. It's like, oh, they're really back to what everyone wants to see again. This looks really good. This looks really great. And then it launches, and it was just not good. So like it just
So
tanked
bad.
right off the start, and it was like, oh man, if they couldn't nail this, then what are they? This series is done. So it's good to see that they seem to have course corrected pretty nicely on this.
That's pretty dope, guys. I'm glad to hear that because I've been getting back in, obviously, with COD, and that feels good to like get in with your buddies, like in a multiplayer game that you thought maybe you were done with. Because I thought I was kind of done with COD, and then they were like spawn Halloween events, and I was like, all right, fine. And then like once you're with the right friends and the right modes, and there's options that you can play, it's just like a whole new life for a game I thought I was done with, So that's cool, very cool. We're going to take a break from talking games for a second, and we've got to talk about Rick's camera. We knew it was coming.
I did.
Yep. So of course we'll lead into another discussion. But Rick, your camera, you shared a little tidbit before we started about this.
Did.
Yeah, hit me with some knowledge here.
I am rocking the Xbox 360. I think it was called the Vision camera or something weird. Like it was just that dinky little. Was it like $40 camera that people use on Uno and stuff like that? It's the only camera I had, so I hooked it up.
That's crazy.
I'm pretty sure I had that, and I remember taking a picture of myself because you can put yourself in some of the
Rainbow Six. That's right. You can make your character.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six 2. Rainbow Six Vegas 2 specifically.
I'm surprised that still works. Like just with your drivers and everything.
I mean, Microsoft are pretty good about drivers for everything. It's like, I mean, I could plug in a 360 controller and still, if I found one, and it would still work.
Right.
Yeah, they probably have fairly updated drivers. I mean, I way prefer the newer controller, so I wouldn't do that, but I'm sure I could.
That's crazy. And in your background, I think I see a couple things that are like statues. I think I see from Horizon.
See a lot, yeah. Yes, this side. So that right there is the Lego tall neck from Horizon. That is the Tremor Tusk from the Regalia edition of Horizon Forbidden West. And there's a whole bunch like that one is the Halo Reach Collector's Edition. That's the Witcher 3 Collector's Edition. And then I got all kinds of other ones throughout the room. It's just that's what you see specifically behind me. I got lots of other ones on there, but you can't really make them out of the camera.
Did you get them all like when they launched? Were those things that you got at launch, or did you like go back and get them later on?
The ones that I just mentioned, yeah, I bought it. Like I think the tall neck, I believe, sold out fairly quickly. I think they released it again, but I got that right away. And then all the other collector's editions, yeah, I bought them actually at launch.
That's cool. I have found that I'm very particular now about collector's editions, whereas I was a little haphazard with it at first. Like I would just buy any collector's edition. Now I'm very specific about which ones. Not even in the money thing, but like space. Space is
very much so.
Yeah. I think it's more space now than anything.
Does that make us all spoiled? Like if the space is our problem?
I mean, look at King David. He's figured it out.
He has an entire basement dedicated to. But of course, what he gets are all that big. So his are enormous.
Yeah,
him and Ains.
He does. But
Ains too. Yep.
I have the teacher salary edition, which means they're all made of PVC.
Mine are all PVC too.
I got to be like, honey, hey, first of all, you're beautiful.
Yep.
Second. So, Clint, your camera, not from Xbox 360, and you are in the Starfield. Are you in a room of like collector's editions and stuff as well?
I don't have too many collector's editions. I just recently got the I ordered the Final Fantasy Rebirth one. I think Diablo 4 was the last one I got in. And that one was fantastic. The other major one I probably have for like the bigger expensive one is probably the Ghost of Tsushima. That one
awesome.
Was really good. Yeah, I loved that one. Actually came with like the whole samurai mask.
Such a good game.
That was awesome.
I regretted not buying that one.
So
I did not get that one. I'm like, oh man, I really should have got that one.
But my guiltiness with the collector things is like I have like a ton of pop figures and Star Wars stuff, but if I see a game that has a metal case with it, I just want to buy it just so I can have the metal case. Even if I don't play it, like I'm pretty sure I've got a couple Saran wrap still ones back there that I haven't opened up just because it has a metal case. And went to Best Buy and it was like $15.
It's going to be the currency in like 500 years. They're going to be like, we need to trade you 3 metal cases for this.
Be like Fallout with caps.
How do you guys display your steel cases?
Mine are just in like a bookcase straight along. There's a couple that are face forward, but just kind of straight.
Mine are right there. They're all sideways because I had nowhere else to put them. Actually, I've considered if I could make the space. I like what Ains does. I've considered doing something like that where he like mounts them on his wall. And I think he changes them in and out. Sweet. But that's awesome. Like he showed images and pictures of that before. I'm like, that's a really cool idea, actually.
I need to get like I think he does it with magnets or something. I need to get like
Okay. I was wondering how he did it actually.
I think he does it with magnets. I need to get like a magnetic strip and just do that because I would love for like this wall right here to be steel books all the way down. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool idea.
I wonder if because it could be a good idea, could not be, but I know they have like those. I have one for my kitchen. It's a wood rod that is just like it looks like a 1x2, and it has a pretty strong metal magnet built into it so that it can hold up steak knives or like cooking knives and stuff like that.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that would probably work. And then just mount it to the wall.
Yeah, you'd find that on Amazon. I need to. It's like I got all these great steelbooks, and they just sit on my desk. You know,
I got mine at IKEA. And I think they were pretty cheap. So it was like but it works great for knives. I can't imagine why. Actually, I do have a steel case. I'll be right back.
He has a steel case. It's like, I'll be back, guys. I've got a steel case.
Experimentation on the air. I like it.
That's crazy. I want to have a conversation about more of the games we've been playing, but I'm worried I'll lose it if I don't talk about film grain in games. and the genesis of this for me was that I started playing Alan Wake just a few minutes ago. Like we're talking less than an hour ago, I started Alan Wake 2, which that's one hell of an opening. I won't spoil anything for anybody. What a great spectacle of an opening and whatnot. But immediately I went into settings and turned off film grain. And I was like, get this out of here. I also turned off motion blur because I don't enjoy motion blur at all. But I feel like I'm always turning these things off, never turning them on because the default is always on. So I want to ask you guys kind of like where you stand on this because a lot of games are doing it. But Rick, you have to go first because you've turned your film grain filter up to 100.
You get 150, I think. So I definitely have a more nuanced opinion on this than a lot of people. Depending on the genre, sometimes I do actually prefer film grain, particularly horror. And motion blur, I don't have an opinion one way or the other unless a game is running at 30. If it's running at 30, I typically think it's preferable to have it on. At 60, probably without it. A couple recent examples is I was playing both Callisto Protocol and Alan Wake. I actually didn't mention Alan Wake, but I am playing that at 30. I'm playing them in the fidelity things. And Callisto Protocol specifically, it seems like the way that they designed their motion blur, it's almost like the artistic direction. It's kind of supposed to be there. And when I watch like Digital Foundry, for example, John had mentioned that, and I actually watched his so I could see direct comparisons of with on and off. And I was like, I kind of agree that actually it looks better with it on. Again, 60, not so much. 30, I think it does help. Film grain, I typically would leave it on, but there have been a couple examples recently where I did turn it off. And Alan Wake is actually one. I thought that it actually was causing like almost artifacting when it was turned on. And I noticed it was causing like some just real weird flickering and stuff like that. And another one was Spider-Man 2. And I did not expect that. Actually, I didn't realize it was in Spider-Man 2. I just wasn't even paying attention. And I'm like, why when I look at the sky, does it look like there's a grid flickering on and off? And I tried going through a couple settings. I'm like, if I go to performance, that's not going to change that. What's causing this? And I just happened to flick that off, and it fixed it. So clearly, it's like, it must have been the way that the grain was working. It just wasn't displaying it properly. And I thought it really ruined the image. So I turned it off there. But I typically do leave it on because it usually doesn't bother me. Especially in horror games, I kind of like it there.
What about you, Clint? Are you a film grain person?
Instantly off. I think there's only one game I actually left it on, or maybe two, and that was the Evil Within series, 1 and 2. And like Rick said, it almost like it was part of the actual artistic design the devs wanted to have with it, so it came across well. But other games like shooters, it just, I feel like it muddies the graphics, so it instantly comes off for me. Same with motion blur. I just can't. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
I like it when I look at a screen, especially with like Alan Wake with the sunsets that are there and stuff. It's just, I don't want anything muddy. I want it nice and sharp. And a lot of people say the devs, they put it in so it looks more movie-esque type of thing, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just like my games to be as sharp as possible. So usually that stuff just gets turned right off.
That's kind of my thing. Is I paid all this money for this grand TV. I want it to show me the best picture,
right?
And I don't want to be in a movie. But I'm like listening to what Rick's saying about certain games, and like I'm sure I turned it off for Callisto Protocol, and now I'm wondering if I like missed out on anything.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did too. And that was one of those things that was like right at the beginning, so I didn't even give it a chance.
So, something that I've noticed, and actually this was a topic we discussed briefly in the Discord the other day. I've noticed that in games where ray tracing effects are used heavily, it does seem like it is better with it on, for sure. In Callisto Protocol, if you run it at 30, it actually has extremely good ray tracing. So, if you're turning the camera, again, it's at 30 again, I'm not talking 60, at 30. So if you're turning the camera, you'll see like a better, for lack of a better way to put it, like almost like a trail of the reflections and stuff like that looks kind of like what I imagine striking distance probably imagined the image to look like.
Now you guys did some education for me on ray tracing in general, because I default to off quite often. You guys are ray tracing people though.
Yeah. On PC, I usually am. Yeah. Xbox, if I can, and it's not a huge hit or if it can keep a stable frame rate, probably. Yeah. Yep. And it's not like Rick was talking in Discord yesterday. It's not just for, it's great looking at puddles and seeing a reflection and stuff, but it's more
natural lighting.
The ambiance of lighting. Yeah.
Logan, do you use film grain when you play, or motion blur?
No, I usually turn them off because film grain doesn't really add anything that I like to it. It just feels like it's a more of a stylistic approach, kind of like having a sepia or a vinaigrette on, like your photos and stuff. And I try to keep them as raw as possible so that if I want to go in and add stuff later on, I don't have that noise built into the image. So it just kind of translates into when I'm playing games as well too. Motion blur, yes, if the frames aren't like locked, motion blur can cover up choppy frames fairly decently for first person games. So that can help out a lot as well if it doesn't have a locked frame rate. And then to kind of move into what we were talking about with the ray tracing, I usually like to have ray tracing on if it'll stay at a locked frame rate. But if it's like a first person shooter, I'd rather have the frames just because of the accuracy that comes with needing to have accuracy with controller and stuff. But there's something about the grounded state that you get better with ray tracing than you do compared to just like global illumination and having the baked in shadow maps and stuff like that. Like you can still make it look really, really good. But having like huge differences on different parts of the environment because of the light bouncing off of an object that has a color to it, you just don't get that with like other games. So shadows are more realistic and they feel more natural because of ray tracing. And I think once PCs kind of move forward and consoles pick up the tail end of that, I think we'll start to see more ray tracing. I hate sacrificing frame rates for it.
Yeah.
I'm very much the same way. I know we all mentioned that like at some point we'd played Forza or checked it out on some level. I put it down pretty quickly, but when I was playing it, I almost immediately switched it into kind of that performance ray tracing hybrid of the two. I guess my eyes just aren't tuned for certain visual things, or once I'm playing a game, I want the smoothest possible experience. I prefer frames to pixel count, but I'm not built to look for that kind of stuff. But when I hear you guys talk, you speak with an understanding that I lack.
If I might make a suggestion, if you want to educate yourself on what ray tracing can really do, this is a few years old now, but I had mentioned about Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. Right before that came out, 4A Games released like kind of I don't know if it was a making of or whatever, that they specifically showed the difference between their scenes, like how they program them with versus without ray tracing. It was really because they showed like this one scene, right? You'll have like a train car or whatever, and they would make this fake light source, and then that kind of. Whereas when they did actual ray tracing, the scenes as it is, and then they actually put where the proper light sources are, and like Logan said, light bounces off of different surfaces accurately, and it sounds like nothing, but when you see it in action, it really makes everything look so much more realistic. It's pretty remarkable.
So 4A Games, Metro Exodus, I can do that. Okay, I can do that because I like.
It's a very, very good video. It's a very good video, actually. I really liked when they showed it. Did you see that one, Clint? The video when they were making the ray tracing?
I did, yeah, and I think I remember the scene you were actually talking about. It was very impressive, and shout out to them for having it run on Xbox at 60 frames. It's like black magic. I don't know.
If I remember right, that game really did a lot with the Xbox One X. Like it really put that system on display. Which I enjoyed, because at the time it was sometimes those mid-gen refreshes, it's hard to find the game that pushes it. And Exodus and I think it was Ghost Recon Wildlands both demonstrated how pretty that system could run things at the time.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because Metro specifically, even at that time, demanded a pretty demanding computer. So I cannot even imagine how it ran on just like a base Xbox One or a base PS4, because that had to just absolutely dog it down. That was a demanding game.
I can't imagine. I remember being astounded by the lighting and visuals in that game when there were creatures that were laying down in mud or dust, sand, and then like rose up out of it to come get me. And I had no idea they were there. I clipped it, went back and looked at it. They were there the whole time, but the visuals were so good at crafting shadows that it just blended in perfectly. It was a haunting display there.
Revisit the Enhanced Edition and you'll see honestly how much better it looks. It is night and day. It really, really is.
Okay, so I will put that on my to playlist, which I was telling Logan on the most recent XEP. My to playlist from just new stuff. I have not touched Everspace 2, Phantom Liberty, Sonic Superstars, Metal Gear Solid. Because where there's like one more that I just want to go back to Motorfest. Those are the games that I just haven't even had a chance to look at because October was so just insane.
It's crazy. I just want kind of like honestly a break of launches for like 2 months, just so I can just catch up.
You're kind of getting that in November at least. Like there's not a ton in November.
Yeah.
And then even December, the only thing of interest to me is I really think what's it called? Avatar something of Pandora looks very, very good. But that's like well, next week I also get the new EA Sports WRC game comes out, but I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else in November I'm interested in. Then I got a break until Avatar, and I'm like, oh, thank God, I can finally get through some of this stuff.
You're not a COD person, Rick? Is that correct?
I'm the only person on Earth that's going to say this, but I do know that. Yes.
Okay.
I play the campaigns. That's actually about it. I don't really play the multiplayer at all.
Okay. Interesting.
And I haven't even really played a campaign for them in a while. What was it? I was playing Cold War relatively recently, but that's been about it. That's how far behind it I am.
Gotcha. Because I think that's the big like staple November game, and that's happening early November.
There's I think in November there's a Star Ocean.
That too. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And
it just never ends.
And Super Mario RPG, and then I'm sure there'll be something in there that releases, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'd like to play that, and it'll go on my Steam wish list of what is now like 47 games now or something. I don't know who's counting. It's just
I went into my wish list on Xbox earlier and I looked at like some of the stuff that I like, I still want to buy this, play this, like Endless Dungeon. Like where's an Endless Dungeon fit into a month of October? You know what I mean? Like how in the world do I justify even if I did like I had all the money in the world, when would I play it?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I purchased Endless Dungeon when it launched because I'd been waiting for it for years, and I played it probably 4 hours or so, and it's great. But I just picked up Battlefield or Alan Wake or Lords of Fallen, and so now that's to the wayside, and who knows when I'll get to it again, type of thing. I want to get to it. I just
Yeah.
don't
When
have the
when
time.
the real killer is, you had this huge quantity of items, and then some of these are also. I mean, Starfield is obviously gargantuan.
Mhm.
Cyberpunk's
Yep.
not just Phantom Liberty, but the big update came, so that's a yeah.
For the
So a lot of
whole
people,
game.
myself
Yep.
included, basically just restarted the game. You're looking at 100 hours now.
Yep.
Then you got Spider-Man, which is 30, 40, depending on how much you want to do. You got all that other stuff it just doesn't end. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's truly the best year in
Yep.
games. Logan
Oh,
and I were
not even a
talking.
doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like look, I think Logan and I were
Yep.
saying that like we've played a lot for coverage, but we have a rule that we don't play something to make us miserable. Like we don't want to miss out on
Mhm.
like we won't
Right.
beeline a game to get a
Mhm.
coverage piece out for
Yep.
us. It's just not how
Mm.
XEP works. But like Logan, you played a lot in October. You played a lot of Mirage, like leading into it, and then you've been playing a lot of COD and seasonal stuff with us for sure. But like you've been playing a lot too. Phantom Liberty, you did towards the end of September.
It's basically been nonstop since the end of or like middle of August. It started out with Immortals of Avium for coverage, and then into Starfield for coverage, and then the Crew Motorfest as well. And then I did Phantom Liberty and the new patch, into Mirage, and then all of the holiday seasonal stuff started coming out. So I started going back into the games as a service that I would normally lead into with most of my content. But to be perfectly honest, like I still haven't finished Star Wars. I barely finished Hogwarts Legacy. I still want to get into Dead Island 2. There's so many games that came out this year. It's hard to want to like jump into some of these games as a service, because it's like, well, I still haven't finished like the single player content that I wanted to get into to get the story done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and I know we've all got such a backlog, and thankfully I play a lot of World of Warcraft, and thankfully it's been kind of dull, patch wise and content wise. But they also have a content drop in November, and that's gonna take up a lot of my time. I raid probably 2 nights a week, and that's 3 hours just for raiding each night, and then just to keep up with stuff, dungeons and stuff like that's another couple hours. So it's just that's going to take a huge chunk of time, and I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do.
See, that's why I've stepped away from like Destiny as well too, because Destiny in the same sense, like they haven't raised the power cap, but every season has like a bunch of content that you want to get, and you got to get catalysts done for exotics and keep your gear into the meta for different raids and stuff. And I finally had to tell my team, I was like, I'm just too busy with other stuff. I can't raid anymore, even though we only raid one night a week. I've been using that time to actually like spend time with my wife so that we can like watch TV and stuff, because there's just been so much else going on every single night that I want to jump into for like coverage sake, so that I can actually like have a good conversation about it, let people know like if this is going to be worth something that somebody wants to do. It's like I just don't have enough time to even dive into Destiny, and honestly, Destiny hasn't even been in a good spot either. So like, it kind of makes me glad to know that like, I can miss this season, and it's not going to be the best season that was ever for Destiny. Beyond Light, I think will probably be, or is it Beyond? I think it's Beyond. No, it's Lightfall. I think it's Lightfall.
Beyond Light comes out next year.
Okay, yeah. Beyond Light is like when I think a lot of folks will probably want to jump back in.
Final Shape is next year. I'm sorry. Beyond Light was a couple ago, I think.
Oh, that's right.
So sorry, I don't play Destiny, but my friends do. So yeah,
it's hard to keep up with them all.
The naming conventions are ridiculous.
Yeah.
The irony of all of what he's saying is that I am so much happier now that he's put down Destiny, because I see him more. Like he jumps in and plays Fortnite and COD with us, and that's been a blast. I really enjoy that, and it's just a time thing, and so I get a kick out of hearing that other people have the same problem as me, but it's also like, man, what do you do? Like, Rick, you're playing Metal Gear Solid. I love MGS. We had a fun discussion in Discord.
We did.
Because the only MGS game that I didn't like and put down immediately was 3, and everybody swears by that. But the rest of them I love. I've played start to finish, adore them, and 3 is like your that's
second favorite game of all time. Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. But how are you liking the remaster collection? Because I haven't touched it. I don't even have it yet.
So I've looked around online as well, and there has been a whole lot of complaining about this collection. But I'm going to be honest, I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see the complaints. I think some of it. Okay, not counting PC. The PC version sounds like it's really messed up. But the console version, I'm playing on PS5. I'm like, this plays more or less like I remember the PS3 or 360 HD collection playing. I see they've said like there's some textures that are maybe not as good, but I looked at the comparison screenshots, and I'll be honest, it's so slight I can't tell the difference. And I'm just happy that I can play Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 again without having to get out. I mean, I technically could on 360, but that's always kind of been a PlayStation series to me, so it feels weird to play it not on that controller, you know?
Right.
How dare.
Yeah, I know that's heresy because we're on the wrong platform here. But
how dare you enjoy games from something else?
Yeah, exactly. So I was always like, man, I really want to play these again. I love Metal Gear. I am a total Metal Gear fanboy. But I'm like, I don't want to dig out my PS3. And on top of that, I'm like, if you people complaining cost me getting Metal Gear Solid 4 on PlayStation 5, I swear we're going to have some problems. Just shut up and let it happen because I need Metal Gear Solid 4 not on PS3. Finally, I think it's going to happen, but I'm just saying. But no, I'm having a good time. I'm definitely having a good time. I mean, there's some things that the translation from like when PS2 and PS3 had the analog buttons, you would use that to hold up your weapon or not fire the weapon or whatever. They mapped that to clicking in the L3 stick, which works pretty well actually, but there are some issues with that I'd like to see them address. And I do know it does have some like Konami themselves have addressed it. It has some like timing issues on a couple cutscenes. I haven't encountered it yet, but I know they themselves have said it's in there, so I know it's there somewhere. I just haven't got to it yet. But something I really want to emphasize on this that I don't think it's getting enough credit for is the extra features in this collection are amazing. These master books that come with each one, I want to own a physical copy of these because they are amazing. Like, you go into like Metal Gear Solid 2, the first couple pages it'll have like a breakdown of whatever the topic is that starts with, like the tanker and Metal Gear Ray and all that stuff. Then it'll have a breakdown of the characters, and then you go a little further in and it'll start talking about the themes about the game and kind of how it ties in. It'll as soon as you load it, it tells you like, hey, this is spoilers for the whole series. Don't read this if you haven't finished the stuff, but I obviously have. Then you go a little further in, and it starts talking about, like, recaps the story. Then you get the screenplay, which, I mean, that I'll never read, but it's there. It's awesome. It's like they really deserve a lot of credit for not just dumping these games on a ROM and being done with it. Like, they put effort into including things. And you play Metal Gear Solid 1, you can play the Japanese only integral version and stuff like that. Like, that's cool. You get all versions, like the best versions of each one, and I like that. That kind of thing makes me happy. So
it makes me wonder if they talked to Digital Eclipse, who's known for these great collections. They did the Cowabunga collection and the Atari collection and stuff. But the reason I say Digital Eclipse specifically is that Digital Eclipse worked with Konami to get the Cowabunga collection out. And I wonder if that didn't inform Konami in any way, or it's just coincidental, because Konami is I think it's very fair to say they've got a difficult relationship with gamers in the last 25 years, because they were so strong, such staples, and then they really fell off in favor of other stuff.
Burned a lot of bridges for sure.
Big time. But I love Metal Gear.
Pachinko machines.
Yes, the pachinko. Yeah, well,
that hurt me every time I saw that, because I'm like, oh my god, can you imagine if we got a Metal Gear Solid 3 that look at that, which we are now, but we were not at the time.
I just want to know if he ever gets the Metal Gear. That's all I want to know. One day, will he actually get the Metal Gear?
You do pilot 1 and 4, so yeah, that's a spoiler. You do get to drive one.
4 was the game for me on PlayStation 3. I was mostly a 360 guy during that generation. I had a PS3 only for Metal Gear Solid 4, and I don't think I've ever seen a game encompass what next gen of its time could look like. Playing Metal Gear Solid 4 was just this step up in what video games could be, just as Metal Gear Solid 1 was for me.
2 and 2.
Yeah.
So 2 didn't step me
2 was
up.
wild too.
It just it did something different in storytelling. But I meant like,
I'll be honest with you, of them all, I think 2 was by far the most impressive for the time that it released. Yeah. 2 was insane when it came out.
Interesting. It could just be like when I saw it, right?
Yeah, that's possible.
because I was a teenager, an early teenager when I got. I think Metal Gear Solid 1 was maybe I was 13, 14, something like that.
Two was a leap in like storytelling.
Storytelling, yes.
Like the way that 2 had environmental interaction that you still to this day don't even see commonplace. Like this was a PS2 game, and when you were in the what was it, the like crew deck or whatever on the tanker in the beginning, if you get caught in fight, you could destroy all the bottles and all the fruit and stuff like that was rotten. It was insane. That was completely unheard of at that time.
I don't even remember that. That doesn't even like register in my mind. I guess as just a dumb kid, I remember hiding in the lockers, and then the character switch that takes place, which I won't say in case anybody wants to dive in and doesn't know.
Spoiler for a 22-year-old game.
Yeah. But I loved 2. I played the heck out of 2.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't remember like I guess that type of detail. Like when I think of Metal Gear Solid 1, I think of the music at the very beginning starting like a movie. And then, once you clear that first one where you realize that you can impact these soldiers that are looking for you and then ride the elevator up, and then you see the title screen, I was like, okay, this is a new thing.
That was
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. But I was gonna say that was basically the game that basically made it that basically made it that games could have a cinematic feel to them. That was like the first one to really do that.
Yep, I fully agree. I think. Go ahead, Logan. Go ahead.
I'll push back. I'll say that because it takes a note from Bond with their cold opens and stuff, and I think GoldenEye had that as well with the N64. But it was definitely like you did kind of see that, but it wasn't the fidelity that you'd seen. You'd seen stuff like that with like I think Mario 64 had a similar kind of opening where it was like you kind of got a little bit of a taste of what was going to happen, and then it kind of like panned up, and you got to see like the actual title screen for what was going on. But with Metal Gear Solid 2, it felt like there were stakes right from the start, and it pushed you into a scenario where you had to you felt like it was like a Bond movie, or like the opening to like a Mission Impossible, and you just didn't see that all that often with games, especially like PS1 was kind of the start of that. But it wasn't until we really got some major influences in from films, like with Kojima, that you could actually like appreciate just how serious they were being about vid games at that time.
Do you guys think the storytelling of games like Metal Gear, because they got so ridiculous, they lost? How do I word this? Like, I have no idea without having to look back what happened in Metal Gear Solid 2's ending, like what he was really talking about. I didn't understand that at the time, and like if I go back as an adult, I might understand it, but then it gets further and further off the rails. So like this Metal Gear Solid 4, which I believe is the best one, but easily one that we think is just this technological marvel, still definitely a great game. To play Metal Gear Solid 4, you have to know everything from the other games.
This is definitely true. Yes.
And that makes it such a high barrier to entry.
It's a total cold open. That's for sure. Do you want to take this one, Clint, or you want me to go? Because I have things to say for sure.
Oh no, I think you're the Metal Gear fan. Like I love 1 and 2. I love them all, but I don't know the story, or like if I saw it type of thing, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that type of deal, but it's not ingrained in my head.
So first of all, what you said, definitely, like I said, definitely right. Cold open. If you don't know Metal Gear, there's no point in playing Metal Gear Solid 4 because you are not going to know who anybody is. You're not going to know what's going on. They're going to start throwing out terms that you don't know what the heck they mean. However, I have long said that I think that when you really take into account, so let's end with Metal Gear Solid 5, which I didn't actually care for, but
I liked that game.
I liked it as a game. The story I thought was terrible.
Yeah.
But it's basically, I believe it is the longest continual running story in gaming history, because it basically started in 87, I think, and somewhere around there. MSX, obviously, it came there before it came to NES, and then ended in 2015, I think, is when Metal Gear Solid 5 came out. And now the part where it gets confusing to a lot of people, and this is the Kingdom Hearts thing too, which I'm also a fan of because I hate myself apparently, but the amount of retconning is quite large, especially when you bring Metal Gear Solid 3 in. It kind of retcons a lot of stuff, but I thought it did it well and actually wrapped it up pretty well, and then tied everything that happens in 3 into what happens in 1, 2, and thus 4 and all that stuff. And basically made like all these characters have purpose, have reason. And onto something else that you said, I understand maybe you don't remember it because it's been a while. I think if you would play Metal Gear Solid 2 today, the themes and topic of that would resonate more than any other game you could probably play right now, because the whole point of the story is entirely about controlled information and basically the information being manipulated to get the populace to believe what they want it to believe, which is obviously a massive political thing as we are right now. And it's kind of something people look back and go, wow, this is really impressive that he actually thought of this stuff this long ago, well before the internet became the massive thing that it is now. The game even has the term meme in it. I don't think it's used. I don't think it's used anything like what a meme is now, but it actually is used in it. The term meme is in Metal Gear Solid 2.
So I remember that, and I feel like I remember it also in Metal Gear Raiden. Like,
well, it could be because you're talking about Rising, Revengeance.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It could be, but that one takes place after 4, so we were a little more in the modern era at that point anyway.
Gotcha.
So that would make sense.
Gotcha. Well, I will say this. I think that it's a good thing that Metal Gear Solid 4 isn't in there, because that's the draw in for the next collection or volume 2 or whatnot.
For sure.
The next stuff, because this allows people to kind of, to our point, familiarize themselves with the story. But I'm so excited for when that does happen, because I know I'm going to get the Metal Gear Solid collection at some point. Like maybe it's a holiday sale pickup, and then I enjoy it in December or January kind of thing. We'll see.
Yeah, sure. The leaks that have come out from people that data mined, I think it was the PC version, they found references in the launcher to Metal Gear Solid 4, Peace Walker, and 5. Now 5's weird because obviously you can play that, but nonetheless, everyone's like, okay, they have to bring Metal Gear Solid 4 to modern consoles, because there's the only one you can play it on is PS3. And then they probably wouldn't bother with like portable ops, because that is and isn't canon at the same time. It's really, really weird. But Peace Walker is. So now that one is also in the 360 collection. But so I do believe it'll happen. I think within another year we'll probably see that one release. I hope so.
I think Konami's definitely realizing they need to use this franchise more lucratively, but also do right by it to build for future projects, for sure.
Yeah, they've been so dormant on their IPs. It's sad.
Big time.
The Silent Hill, the
Castlevanias,
Castlevania. Yeah, it's crazy.
Daddy, what's a Castlevania? Is that the Netflix?
It's a Netflix. That's right. I found myself doing a lot of Spider-Man this month, and also today I bought my wife Mario Wonder, and I think about how Xbox had Starfield, and we had like multiple Game of the Year contenders in this window of time. Add Alan Wake to it, add Assassin's Creed Mirage at a high caliber. There's so many heavy hitters hitting right now. Not to mention, I think Diablo is making a resurgence at the moment and winning people back. That's kind of been the neat theme for this past month. No?
Yeah. It's just I think we've talked about it in Discord. All the heavy hitters, like you said, alone just this month could be Game of the Year contenders just in this month. And I could have probably like 5 Game of the Years at this point.
This year alone, we've had 5 or 6 games that any other year would walk away with Game of the Year, and they're all going head to head this year.
Right. And
Logan was talking about how he hadn't finished Jedi, and it's like, how could you not finish Jedi? Because it wasn't busy then comparatively. But like, to me, that's a Game of the Year contender. But it didn't even, in terms of gameplay, but it doesn't even factor into my list now. Because of it. And the story kind of was lame. I thought that story was
Zelda came out like right after Jedi.
I've not heard
it was only like 3 weeks. You're right.
Are people talking Zelda? Because obviously my curated timelines don't talk Nintendo as much as some others. Is Zelda like up there for Game of the Year the realm?
I think so.
Yeah. You can't ignore how they took everything that was wrong with Breath of the Wild.
Nothing was wrong with Breath of the Wild. That's a fallacy and misunderstanding.
Everything that was missing that people wanted from Breath of the Wild was added to Tears of the Kingdom.
I was not a Breath of the Wild fan, but I love Tears of the Kingdom. I thought Tears was great.
Yeah, I was one of the odd ones out that I thought Breath of the Wild. I tried to get into it 2 or 3 times, and it was just
Yeah.
I
But
couldn't get into
Tears
it.
is excellent. Tears really, really is good.
So, if you guys had to pick like top 3 games to potentially win Game of the Year, maybe not your top 3, but like what are the top 3 that you think are going to win Game of the Year across kind of your major hitters, IGNs, Keeleys, that kind of stuff?
For like IGN and stuff, I think you're gonna see Zelda take a lot. Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not sure on the third.
I'm betting Mario Wonder. Even though I never played it, I just mean like in terms of like perception.
Yep.
I was actually just having this discussion yesterday, and yeah, I mean, I think Baldur's Gate's going to run away with Game of the Year for everybody that covers at least PlayStation, whether they cover multi-platform or whatever. I think they're going to run away with it.
Mhm.
But Tears of the Kingdom's going to be up there. Or see, when you get to like the Keeleys, I think you're getting either Zelda or Mario. I don't think you'll get both. I think one or the other. Either one is warrants being there because Wonder is very, very, very good.
Mhm.
But you're right. That third one, it's a big drop off because even though it's my personal Game of the Year, I don't believe Starfield's going to be there. I think it was. I think it was a little too like off-putting to certain people. Some people loved it. Some people were like, "Hey, this is good," but so I don't think it's quite going to make it. But it's a hard pick. Maybe Alan Wake. I really could see Alan, because that game had such a huge following that everyone's like, "Man, we need a sequel," and it took 13 years to get there.
Yep.
But it really does get hard because it's such a drop from those two to the next ones. But
right,
it's interesting that you haven't mentioned Spider-Man 2 in this so far yet.
I think it will be there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't think it has a chance of beating either one of them. But I think it'll be there.
It's licensed. That's why it doesn't have a chance.
So okay, I'm only about halfway through it. I know you finished it yesterday or today or whatever it was. I really like it, but it does have some big pacing issues. I think it seems like around where I am now is where it really starts to cook. But it kind of, like they with the fact that they marketed Venom as the thing, it really is looking like he's not in the game very much. From what I've heard, he's amazing, but just not in it very much. I think Craven's cool. Actually, I think they did a good job with him because he's one of my least favorite Spider-Man villains. But I actually do like what they did with him in this. Yeah, I think it's going to be a candidate. I just don't think it has a chance against Baldur's Gate or even Zelda. I think those two are just going to crush it. I think Baldur's Gate's just going to run away with Game of the Year awards everywhere, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because it's so thirsty.
Even though
yes,
it is. There's definitely some thirsty in there for sure.
I'm of the mind that Baldur's Gate is going to be in there, Zelda's going to be in there, and then I am curious. I've not played more than 30 minutes of Alan Wake, but the quality is obvious, and the reviews are of course very high. I'm thinking that third one could be Spider-Man. I could see people making a play for a lot of different games here, but I agree with you, Rick, not Starfield. Starfield is, to me, one of the best games I've ever played, but it's like the best 8 I've ever played. It's very messy. It very much, like, it was too ambitious for its own good, I think. I think they could have standed for more curated experiences, like a little bit less. And I think we're a year away from it being that 9.5 out of 10. They need to clean up a lot of the loading menus and some of the experiences there. Once they clean that up, I think we're good. But I just don't think that's happening for a bit. So Starfield, I think, is out. What's up, Logan?
I was just going to say, it's too bad that there isn't a game that's like Starfield but smaller, made by people that used to work with Bethesda. Because I think if they had done, like a Skyrim that was like, or not a Skyrim that was that was like in space, but like like a smaller story, maybe same kind of concepts and stuff.
He's making an illusion, everyone.
An illusion.
Something that would be in like some kind of outer world setting or something like that. Something like that.
Yeah, there's outer worlds to it, and you can still do all the stuff that you want, but it's not Starfield. But something like that. It's a shame that there isn't like a really good game out there that doesn't get enough credit.
I actually like Starfield way better than Outer Worlds myself. But
yeah, I didn't even enjoy Outer Worlds at all.
I didn't either. I wanted to. But everything about it, I'm like, this just doesn't do it for me.
How dare. The
I loved
disrespect.
Outer Worlds. And with Starfield, like Logan said, it's the best 8 or 7.5 I've played. And while I was playing it, thoroughly enjoying it very much, the whole time I'm like, I want Elder Scrolls 6.
Really?
That's what was. Yep. That's I was like, this is.
Is that like a style preference for you?
I don't know, because I love space and everything, and I think I loved Skyrim very much. So then I'm seeing their graphics engine, and now that Microsoft can, give them more money and time to work on that, I just think Elder Scrolls is just going to be fantastic.
I do too. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Whenever, hopefully, I get it before I collect Social Security, but I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think I look at the timelines, like, how is Todd Howard still going to be working then?
That's going to have to be his last game. I can't fathom he'll have a game after that one. Because that's got to be 8 years away still. It has to be.
I mean, Shigeru Miyamoto's still advising Mario's, yeah?
Yeah, but he's not designing that, I don't think, is he?
Shigeru Miyamoto is there because his name is awesome and he likes the purity of Mario. But he's not doing that.
I could see Todd being that kind of visionary influence, the way I don't know, there's Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese's doing directing, but he's not he's not doing the thick, like Mel Brooks. They're kind of involved with things, but they aren't actively working on set every single day kind of thing.
Maybe. I think Miyamoto's a Weekend at Bernie situation. He's like, what if we use an elephant? And they're like, let's do it.
Yeah.
There's a cardboard cutout there for him.
Yeah. Put Miyamoto on the box, everyone. He said this is his latest invention. It's his greatest idea.
So still card him out for console launches.
Yeah. Yeah. Charles Martinet. We got Chris Pratt now. I guess we can retire him. That's fine.
So, just as a question for you guys, let's say the year's 2052 and Starfield 2 is coming out. Okay, do they do it like everyone wants them to, and make it No Man's Skyrim this time? Like, make it a instead of fast travel the game, as everyone's calling it, do they make it a large seamless thing? Because that would require a massive redo of everything that they've done.
Yes, they do, and that is the problem with this one. I venture to say, they certainly need to clean up some of the loading screens anyway for this one. Like, that absolutely needs to happen in some patches. They get rid of, tick away a number of screens and fast travel stuff. But
I just play on PC.
What I was thinking is, they could do jump gates or something to where you clean up the experience of going into a menu and clicking. You could add jump gates and make that a more seamless experience. You're tricking the player. It's kind of like squeezing through the corridor. But I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather that to more streamline the event as opposed to menu the game.
I think that's my biggest criticism, is there's so many menus to get to point A to point B, instead of just having like you said, a warp gate that says, hey, this is the soul system. You fly towards it and you just enter warp and go type of thing. Like you said, clean it up just a little bit.
So I've been playing it on PC, and when it was first come out, everyone was complaining about all the loading. I'm like, I get it. You're going into a lot of menus and all that stuff, but I was like, I don't kind of get the big deal. I did try it on Xbox, and I'm like, okay, the load times on PC are far faster than they are on Xbox, and I'm like, okay, what's that?
Seconds.
I didn't think they were bad on Xbox.
No, they're not bad, but they're 6 or 7 seconds. They're like 2 seconds on PC. Like, they're very, very quick. Yeah. So, and in my brain, I just convinced myself that I'm using a menu in the flight system or whatever to go where I want to go. So it doesn't. But I totally get what people's complaints on that. The one thing that I do wish they'd have done differently is, I do wish you could fly the ship in atmosphere. I kind of think that was a mistake, to make it that all you can do is land. Like, I wish you could fly the plane, or the ship rather, around the planet, and I think that would alleviate most of that issue. I don't think people would have an issue going through menus to fast travel. I think it's just the fact that you can't fly it in a planet is kind of a strange decision.
That was in the game. I think that was in the game at one point, and time and resources, the game was just too big for what they.
I wouldn't be surprised with the DLC if we get some type of like Land Rover that can drop out of our ship or something.
Mr. Matty Plays, that's a theory he's been going with, is he thinks that one of the later DLCs is going to be that you get to build some kind of robot like you do in Fallout. It was an automaton, I think, if you build your own robot or whatever. But he thinks that you actually build I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he thinks you'll have to build a vehicle that you can then pilot and actually move around at a faster pace.
That would be great. I think that's important because some of those, I was telling Logan during one of our many discussions about Starfield, it's that I'll get onto a planet and I'll go to explore. I'll go to this unknown point, take a long time to run and jump and use my boost pack or whatnot, get there, and it's a crater. And it's like, the hell is this? Like, what am I doing? Why? And if I get there faster, and they can up perhaps some enemy spawns or some monsters or whatnot, I think will be good. I also think the lack of aliens was a big problem.
There are aliens in the game.
No, there's not.
Yes, there are.
There are creatures. They're not aliens.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not the same.
I didn't know you were so bothered by the fact that there's just gazelle and tigers on all these random planets. Forgive me.
Yeah. Still, I love the game.
So do I, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the quite like. It does have a space explorer fantasy, but it doesn't have the like exploring the frontier fantasy, if that makes sense. Like it still feels like like you're going like, hey, I want to see what I can find out here, but you're not just scouring to find things. Like you're still going to not even curate it, but you're going to set locations. Right. But it still did resonate with me. Like I'm weird. I did not like Skyrim. I love Elder Scrolls and I did not like Skyrim. But this one has hit something in my brain way more than Skyrim or Fallout or any of them ever really did. Like this is, I've been telling my friends, and I know I'm the only one that thinks this way, this is my favorite Bethesda game since Oblivion. And I loved Oblivion.
Oblivion was fantastic.
It's one of the best games ever made.
Interesting. I never got into either one, just by way of like who I was at the time. Didn't lend it to me, and by then it was too late. Like there was something had been built up, and it was gone. I want to point out that we have talked about we talked about a number of bigger games, but like Forza Motorsport, we talked about when we talked about ray tracing, but like we barely mentioned Lords of the Fallen, barely mentioned Assassin's Creed Mirage, barely mentioned Lies of P. But you guys have played these games, right?
Yeah.
Anything stand out worth talking about in these realms?
Lies of P. I've only played a little bit of it, but the little bit I've played, and it's been said multiple times from sources, so it's the best Souls game that isn't from Software. Basically, it's and I love that. I absolutely love the story in it and where the direction of the DLC seems to be going, or might not be DLC, but the second part of their universe. I'm totally excited for it.
That's the one that's going to.
Don't say it. It is a big spoiler. Don't say it.
Oh, is it actually a spoiler?
It's a very big spoiler.
When he posted it, he was like, "Oh, I thought that was an announcement. I didn't realize that was like at the ending."
Yeah,
yeah. Don't say that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Glad you stopped me.
Yeah. No. Actually, so I totally acknowledge that I'm in the minority on this. It is probably my favorite Souls-like, and that includes the FromSoft games. First of all, for me, the whole Pinocchio setting goes miles. I think that when they first announced that, I'm like, that is a weird idea that is amazing. I hope they can pull this off, and they pulled it off better than I ever thought they could have. Like the design of the puppets, the design of Pinocchio himself. I think Pinocchio himself just looks amazing. I think he is so cool looking, and
is that P?
Yes, actually, Gene Park. This is a cool thing. Gene Park said since NeoWiz, I believe, is the name of the developer. They're Korean. The name on that is actually a play on words. It means P is in Pinocchio. P is actually the Korean word for blood. So it means Lies of Blood and Lies of Pinocchio, which is really cool. That unfortunately, cool. without him saying that, no one would ever know that in English. Because it deals obviously with the story as to his ability to lie, and that's what makes him like not like all the other puppets. But I love it. I think the design's awesome. I think the design of Krot, which is the city you're in, is very cool. It is tough, but not not exceedingly so. Like sometimes I think certain FromSoft games are just difficult for the purpose of being difficult. Whereas here, I think it actually does. In most cases, I'm not saying there's obviously exceptions to this, but I think in most cases it's actually pretty fair. I can't say enough good things about Lies of P. I love it. I think it's so good, and I like the fact that it's a story told in a normal manner, not where you have to like dig. Again, I'm not trying to pick on FromSoft, but where you have to dig through the item descriptions and stuff like that. It doesn't. It does have that, but that's not how it tells its story. It tells its story like in a proper linear fashion, and I prefer that myself. I always have. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about it is that it's a story you can follow. Whereas, like you said, with the Souls series, it's like I have to find this item to connect to this item, and then I have to read a paragraph about this and that and this, and hopefully put it together. And I couldn't tell you anything about Souls.
Me either.
Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and I couldn't tell you a thing except that I liked the gameplay.
Right.
But story-wise,
they worship fingers in Elden Ring. That's what I could say.
Yeah.
Elden Ring was so weird, but I loved the game, but I have no idea what happened.
Right.
Just
do you guys think we'll ever get like a Dark Souls game that deals with lighter type characters? Like we used to get like Jack and Daxter, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot characters, mascots for like different consoles and stuff like that. Dark Souls and Souls-like games are such a staple for game design that even you're running into the situation where everyone's trying to get their Dark Souls game out there so that they can have a stake in or like a cash cow for their studio. And everyone's a fan. Do you think we'll ever see anything that deals with characters that are like lighter in nature as opposed to these super gothic, dark horror element Souls games? Like, are we ever going to get like a light, fun kind of Souls game?
I would argue in ways we already have. That's actually exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yep.
I was going to say, if the Star Wars Jedi series, they're kind of a mishmash of Souls games as well as Metroidvania. So I would say that there you got right there. And they obviously deal with some fairly heavy themes in the Star Wars way, but they're also pretty lighthearted. I mean, he tends to crack jokes and stuff like that all the time, and I would say there's where you got that.
There's a crab game that I can't think of what the name is, but it's like the closest thing that I've seen that's like a Souls-like game that is like lighthearted and goofy. Like, are we gonna get like a SpongeBob SquarePants Soul game?
I think at some point we will, because the Souls is, like you said, everybody wants a piece of the pie right now. It's a cash money thing. You can release it and people will buy it just being a Souls fan because they want that content. But I think at some point it will get old where it's always the gothic looking area, and I think at some point you'll see like a Jedi Survivor where it's more open or more light filled, and I think we will. It's just a matter of which developer is going to take that leap to try something different and hope that it sticks. Type of thing.
I would agree with that.
I hope they do. I mean, I love the gothic dark and stuff, but it would be cool just to play something.
Well, specifically also games that have, whether it be like sword or melee combat like that, I think bar none, this is the best in the business when it comes to that kind of thing. It doesn't have to follow the difficulty and the level structure, but I think in terms of just pure melee mechanics, I think Souls and its like are pretty much top of the mountain by a mile.
Yeah.
Not taking into account like the Batmans where you're dealing with like a whole bunch of people surrounding you at one time. But if you're talking like one-on-one, I don't think anything even touches that kind of combat. So if they would take something like that and put it in a more standard, even like Elder Scrolls 6, like that would be, I was talking about that, but that would be great. Yeah. Like that would be the perfect way to do that. But
there's a boss in Spider-Man 2 that very much felt like a Souls boss to me. And it reminded me, and stick with me, of like Darksiders 3, where you could play it like a Souls and probably have a very efficient victory against that boss, or you could just button mash and make it work. And I think a lot of that mishmash is probably the closest that Logan's going to get to that kind of a game,
Well, obviously, if you go with, like you mentioned, SpongeBob, obviously, if you're going to do that, you've got to drastically reduce the difficulty as well. So you've got to take that aspect out of it because you're going to be obviously have younger audiences that you're trying to appease to.
Yeah,
but it could be done. It could be done.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea, because I mean, like, if you look at like SpongeBob SquarePants right now, your demographic is kids that watched it when it was like in its high time. So those are probably like kids that are close to like 16 to 20 right now that are getting into these Souls games. And you could have, like Jedi has, where it is opening up the parry window, or auto blocking, or having accessibility to still have an appeal for a younger generation. But it just surprises me that style of game has remained such a thematic style to the games that have come out around there, that hasn't like transcended. Like, we've seen Smash Brothers stay within like mascot fighters. Like, we haven't seen like a super realistic like dark gothic Smash Brothers game. And it's just like, there's some games that just don't ever leave that style, because I think they're trying to stay so close to the source material that you don't really have that kind of moment. Like, I think like Metroid Dread is the first game where I could say that is like a Souls-like game on how you deal with the Emmys, but it still is rooted in its Metroid theme. But it's very like one touch hit with an Emmy is going to kill Samus. And it's not until later on that you have any way to like manage it, but you have like a small parry window in that pulls from like Souls games that you just don't see too often. And I keep wondering, like, when will the Dark Souls move away from the dark and just be a Souls game style?
Yeah, it would be cool to see almost like a maybe like a Greek god type of game or something, where it could be like, Greece, anywhere where it's just light and temples and stuff like that, and just a nice color palette type of thing, or it could still be an adventure game but have the Souls style.
God of War did Souls style with its Furies, which I thought was interesting. But that's not quite what you're talking about.
Thank you.
But like, the game wasn't that way, but that kind of like one aspect of it was. But I'm curious, we're having this conversation and it makes me think, like, God of War and Dark Souls are kind of two styles that people chase right now. What do you think Hellblade does? Hellblade 2? Like, do you think that is either one of those?
I think it's going to be more of the first.
I agree with that.
Where it was very strong storytelling. Hopefully there's more combat in it. It would be interesting, but I think it's going to stick to its roots. I also think that's going to be one of those games where it's going to be, for me anyways, that generational leap of graphics and facial animation and stuff like that. I think that's going to be a big hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that kind of thing is exactly what Ninja Theory are so good at. You look even back on the 360 and PS3, they made that, what was it called? Journey, the game that was based on Journey to the West. What was that game called? Enslaved. And yes. the facial animation from Andy Serkis and whoever played the girl in that was I mean, it was incredible for that time period. And then obviously that facial tech carried over to the first Hellblade, but that game was basically an indie game. I think they published that themselves, if I'm not mistaken. It was a pretty like low budget, small scale game, and it really got popular. Like, people really liked it because it was unique. It was really well done. The graphics were great, and Ninja Theory's graphics are always really good. So I would agree with that. I would say it's going to be more of the first one, with probably, I don't want to say more of a focus on combat, but with a focus of improved and more combat. That way there's a bit more game to it, as opposed to walking around, which is okay. It's just I think people do want to see a more, standard third person action adventure game.
I agree. And I would venture to guess that if the game wasn't going to have that, Microsoft said, hey, can we get a little more? We need a competitor to that third person over the shoulder narrative action title that Sony has just perfected at this point.
I also think we'd have seen more of it by now if it was just going to be just like the first one. I think that's why it's been so just showing cutscenes and just little bits of it here and there. I think they're still probably fine tuning gameplay, and that's why they're not showing it too much. That's my guess.
Yeah.
My prediction is Game Awards. You see it.
Oh, for sure.
I hope so.
I would think so.
I want to see. I want to see Indiana Jones. That's
All right,
what I want to see.
Do you think? So I say this to Logan all the time. I say that nobody cares about Indiana Jones. That it does.
That's
no
ridiculous.
One cares. Now it's ridiculous.
I find that offensive.
Are you offended or do you disagree?
I'm not actually offended, but no, I actually think that Indiana Jones is more popular than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, talk to me then, because I don't think any kid knows or cares about him, and I'm not dissing it. Like I am not dying on a hill about that, but like even the most recent movie didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah, but I almost wonder if that had to do with the failures of the movie before it, and people just assumed it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, it came out at a really busy time, I think, didn't it? Wasn't there something else huge in theaters at that point? Spider-Verse, maybe?
Probably.
I truly don't know.
I think there was something else that was clearly going to crush it in theaters, and they still put it out then anyway.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't think that there's. I mean, there's people our age that love Indiana Jones, grew up with him as a kid and stuff. But I definitely think, like my two kids, even one's in college now, probably don't even know who Indiana Jones is. But I'm hoping that they can release it. It'd be good and kind of almost be like our Uncharted, hopefully, and then that will bring in, a fan base like, hey, this game is good. Now let's look at all this other Indiana Jones stuff that we have, like the old movies, and so I'm hoping that brings them in, and I've got high hopes for it. And I'm surprised we haven't seen like any type of gameplay at all. So
yeah,
I'm all about punching Nazis. Like I'm interested in that.
Or something.
Like I want to see.
You're right. I mean, everybody's game for that, right? So,
and my guess is Microsoft probably have every intention of making this a thing, whether people want it to be a thing or not, because they're going to be like, if you're not interested, we're going to shove it down your throat until you are interested. That's genuinely what I honestly think they're going to do, and I think it's going to be like people like, oh, this is kind of cool, and what's Indiana Jones? And I'm like, oh, well, these movies are actually really fun, even though they're 40 years old now, like they still stand up just fine,
right?
So I totally think that it's going to be fun. And again, very, very talented team making it. Machine Games are so good. Like good story-based team. Now, I mean, I assume it's not going to be a first-person shooter. It's certainly going to be a third-person Uncharted style game. So it does bear the question of if they can do something like that or not. But they were spin-offs of Starbreeze. Is that correct? Like they made like the Darkness and stuff like that originally. I think so. Which is what, because there's like you can see like kind of a connective feel between the two. So like again, we know they can write a story even dealing with like a licensed IP, because they did a remarkable job with the Darkness. And so I really have all the confidence in the world that's going to be good, and I think Microsoft is going to make sure that it is popular, and that might very well then be the resurgence of the IP too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that release for Microsoft is a big deal, because that's going to be we've got the first person locked down, Starfield, Halo, stuff like that. Nothing jumps out to me at the moment anyways I can think of that's a really strong third person action game for Microsoft that compares to other PlayStation with God of War, Uncharted.
I think they're going to try to make that their, to quote Lord Cognito, #just1. I think that's going to be their real push on that one.
Understood that reference.
Yep.
I think given the redesign of the dashboard, they're going to have the ability to push a certain game far more than they would have in years prior, whether people wanted to be or not, because it was clearly built for that. You also have to wonder, like, all right, now that, and this is a reach, so tell me if it's going too far, but as they work through the logistics of bringing in Activision Blizzard King, they potentially have however many mobile users to market a game to. Suddenly, if you've got an ad watch for an Indiana Jones Xbox game, or a character skin, or a location on a Warzone map, or I don't know, I'm pushing the limits on that, but what I'm saying is they now have the ability to put a name in front of people on way more screens than they ever did before. And I wonder if they don't take advantage of that.
I definitely agree with you. It's just obviously going to come down to what the licensing agreement allows. But I mean, Microsoft can always just be like, hey, here's more money. We want to put this in Halo or whatever, So I agree with you. I think that's definitely part of what they're planning to do.
Yeah, I definitely think so too, and I think it'll stem more for not just Indiana Jones, but other things like Luke was saying, it's either a skin in Call of Duty or anything like that. And I know Phil said that no skins are going to be, you know, one-sided on a console only thing, and that could be part of their way of like, yeah, you can have this Indiana Jones skin. Here you go on PlayStation. Wouldn't it be cool if you could play the Indiana Jones game as well?
Absolutely.
So I think it's kind of like a long game for them, I'm sure.
I wonder if that agreement doesn't allow them to like sell it on all platforms, but it's a Game Pass perk or something like that. Because
Right.
that would be a neat way of like, I guess, pushing the Xbox side.
Yeah, I think
Logan's
we'll
not a fan.
get our own perks of. I think we'll get perks being Game Pass, maybe something, but and then that'll be me. I don't know. I think we're gonna get something extra. I just don't know what that is. After Phil said we'll have it, you know, on all platforms type of thing. But I don't see them releasing a skin and saying, hey, it's free on Xbox, but you got to pay for it on PlayStation, because that's just gonna piss people off.
But if you
Kind of
sell
like
it,
MLB The Sport.
Right.
Yeah, MLB did Sony dirty on that one. Really dirty.
What's Logan? You don't like the idea of a Game Pass perk being like, you could buy it if you're not in Game Pass, but
Oh no, I think it'd be great. I'd love to have it. I just don't think that that's what Game Pass perks are relegated for. Those are like promotional things for third party things.
Yeah.
They're not like, I mean, every once in a while you'll get like a, hey, get a, you know, like something and see it, like Ori sales and Sea of Thieves or something. It's very low stakes. I don't think you're gonna put Call of Duty skins that are special like collabs as like a Game Pass perk. That's going to be like a discounted with Game Pass 10% offer, or
and break minor hiccup in recording. But I do want to go back to Logan. You talked about how first party collabs, it's very low stakes, and you mentioned like having Sea of Thieves getting Ori sales or whatnot.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds almost the same as a Master Chief skin in COD, or like an alternate skin of Marcus Phoenix in Call of Duty. How is it different? To me, it's the same thing.
Well, so Ori is not technically a first party studio. So that's like a promotional deal that they made a while ago. Like the skins for Sea of Thieves were made a while ago. And they do like some Halo stuff in there, but it's just when you're dealing with a Call of Duty and they talk about like having parity between all the consoles, I feel like they're opening themselves up to litigation issues that could arise as a result of like Game Pass perks being an incentive that they're offering something that can't be offered through PlayStation, you know. So unless it's like something that comes through like the PlayStation Stars program as well, I don't see them wanting to do stuff like that just so they aren't dealing with the legal aspects of it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I can go with that. I got that. I don't know that I'm not sold, but I'm also not like I don't know what to expect from Call of Duty, Activision, and Xbox going forward.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff like that you see in like Game Pass perks is stuff that I see like all the time. So like currency balance pushes through Phantasy Star Online, fancy skin collaborations for World of Warships, you know, trials to Crunchyroll, you know, like different perks or little bonuses to Apex Legends, stuff like that you see in Game Pass. When it comes to like skins, those are like maybe Sea of Thieves, maybe Halo Infinite. Those are like the only ones I think I've really noticed. We just recently got like a Fallout 76 perk, which was like a little bundle of supplies and stuff like that.
Yep.
Rarely ever is it something that they could sell. Most of the time it's usually like a currency.
Gotcha. Well, gents, we've talked a lot about a lot of different games and a lot of different topics. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up on this wrap up that we have not touched on that would be a good time?
I have one thing, but I'll clean if you got something.
No, other than that, there's just so much to talk about. Like we could sit here all day and probably still not hit on all the good points of games that have been released this year. Just what a year to be a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Big time.
Star Fox 64.
Oh God, I want that game back.
Dormant IPs. Why are companies just there's so many like Konami, Star Fox, like Silent Hill, Castlevania, just like print money. That's what they would do if they would release. I don't know.
Worked for Dead Space.
And thank God it did, because Dead Space Remake is
so good.
So amazing.
Love it.
So amazing.
That's unfortunately one that's going to get snubbed in Game of the Year discussions, and it's different enough. I think it should qualify, but it is going to get snubbed, just like Resident Evil 4 is going to get snubbed. And those
Hi-Fi
two are
Rush won't get a look.
Mm-hmm. And those are all genuinely not good, not great, amazing games. All of them.
Yep. I think Resident Evil 4 was, like you said, different enough and could easily any other year be a Game of the Year contender. But this year it's just going to be completely overlooked.
It's not even going to make the top 6. I don't think. Nope.
It's
that
crazy.
Separate Ways DLC is fun.
I was so glad they finally released that, because I liked it on the PS2. So I was glad they finally did put that in there.
Agreed.
So the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and it's specifically because I think I'm the only one that really is bothering with it, but I've been playing a bit of Forza Motorsport. I definitely acknowledge that some of the complaints are valid. For those that haven't checked it out, go watch Ains Bosley's review, because he nailed everything. His review was spot on for every word. But I've been having a good time with it. It definitely needs more content. I mean, but that's obviously what they're working on with the live service aspect. But so I've played Forza Motorsport in the past. I prefer the simulations to the Horizons. But in the past, even though I would play it with a wheel, it was terrible. Like, they really did not make it well with the wheel. If you were playing online, you were actually at a disadvantage if you played with a wheel. They have fixed that with this. It's not perfect. There's definitely some complaints when it comes to like the force feedback, like with the rumble strips and stuff like that, all of which is valid. But the wheel actually is a valid way to play it, and in my opinion, certainly a more enjoyable way to do it. I actually play with a separate like H pattern shifter as well, so that when it's a car with a clutch and a manual, I can play it that way. Nice. But I mean, we've obviously talked about how good the graphics are, which they are very, very good. But the driving model is by far the best they've ever had in the series. In the past, like, the tire physics were always pretty good, but one thing that, for example, Gran Turismo really crushed them on was every car in Gran Turismo would have a unique feel, right? Like, when you would play it, it actually would feel like that car feels when you're driving it. Forza never really had that. It always was kind of a more generic feel that was then modified to whatever that specific car was. That's fixing this. I'm not saying that the cars feel quite as perfect as they do in Gran Turismo, but they really did do a way, way better job. The cars do feel unique, every one of them. Like, if you drive even two cars are similar, a Subaru Impreza and a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, they feel totally different, which is really cool. Like, it's good they finally got that. The sounds are excellent, and they did do a good job with sounds in Horizon. Like, they were always somewhat muted and kind of generic, just adjusted in previous games, but they really, really, really did a good job in the sounds on this. Cars sound totally different if you're in cabin versus outside, which games have done that, but they really do feel pretty unique to the cars. And it's just they did really, really, really did a good job with this game. Like you can see why they kept emphasizing, like, this is just a full-on refresh for this series. We're starting all over here, and they really emphasized like scrapping the physics engine and just rebuilding it. And if you play it, you can really, really tell, because it definitely feels significantly different than it used to. And I just think they did a really nice job, and it's a really good game. I think in 6 months, when there's a few more tracks, so if more cars, more events, stuff like that, I think this is a pretty easy suggestion for any kind of simulation racing fan.
It feels like it came and went, at least in my circles, despite its incredible quality. Because to your point, it's just top tier stuff. They're going back to the drawing board did make a big difference, but I've not heard much about it. And it could go back to the fact that we're in this crazy month of just everything is good.
Yeah, I think that definitely comes heavily into it for sure.
Yep.
Is the racing community playing it nonstop? Do you know?
I honestly couldn't tell you that part. I tend to play it a bit by myself. Obviously, the point for this is to be a bit more online with the live service aspect and whatnot.
Mhm.
So but when you go to like Rivals, for example, I mean, there are tons and tons and tons of times put up for Rivals, so people are definitely, definitely playing it. And they add new Rivals. I think they add them weekly. I don't know. They definitely add new events weekly. I can't remember if they add new Rivals that often or not.
Mhm.
And no matter if you're a professional racer putting up, insane lap times, or somebody who's putting up crap lap times because you don't know what you're doing, there's a ghost out there that's somewhere around your skill level that you can, do your best to try to beat that time and stuff like that. So there's definitely a large level of different skills.
You're not the only scrub.
Yeah, I'm awful at sim racers.
I got kind of embarrassed on a couple weeks ago on SG Bitcast when Ains and Abontis had their thing going. I was last on his friends list for time for whatever they were doing. I was like, oh god. I went home that day and ran like 30 laps. I'm like, I have to get above that, and I finally did. I'm like, okay, good. I wasn't gonna catch them, but I'm like, I have to get above everybody else, and I did manage to win it. You took a hit on that one for sure.
So everybody, once this goes live to YouTube next month, clip this part and send it to Ains.
I think that Rivals is probably off. So you probably can't do it now. I don't know how long they stay up, but
Gotcha.
so nobody can knock me all the way down anymore. I don't think.
There you go. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic episode. I love this new format of welcoming
This is awesome.
community members on.
Yep.
I hope you guys will join us next month because this was
definitely.
a blast.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what we'll talk about because I'm sure nothing big will happen in November and no big games are there.
Yeah.
So, not like there's anything to play between now and then anyway.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Play all the stuff in your backlog?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe I'll play Sonic, Everspace, Metal Gear. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I took like a week off in December, a little over a week, and I'm already like planning like what games can I catch up on in this vacation. Pretty sure that's what I took it for.
Week after Thanksgiving for me, I'm like, don't even bother me. I don't exist for a week.
As it should be. Well, let's go with Clint to start. Clint, let people know where if they want to find you on socials, where they could find you, and where you might be hanging out if people want to get to know you.
Definitely the XEP Discord. Other than that, it's just Ryuketsu everywhere. RYUKETSU. Not doing too much on the social side. Kind of starting to get maybe into streaming a little bit, but mainly just bothering Luke in Discord.
Never a bother. I actually love it. It's great. It's always someone to talk to. It really helps. It's good. Rick, aka Butch4969. Where are people finding you?
Everywhere. Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, the X Bird app, Butch4969, everywhere. I'm always on something. So
There we go. And Mr. Pardon me, not Mr. Captain Logan. Where should I find you, sir?
I'm going to be, as always, in the Keelhauled Discord as well as Keelhauled podcast, but I'm also going to be in the XEP Discord, giving folks the content that they need to make sure that they are feeling like they're involved and invested in the same games that we're playing. So head over there. Make sure you guys are joining up on the Patreon so you can have fun conversations like we did today.
It's amazing Discord.
Definitely.
It is. We're very fortunate. There's such great people there.
So much fun in there.
Yeah, big time. Well, guys, you can find me on all the socials at InsipidGhost, and it would be an absolute pleasure if you would be so kind as to choose to support XEP over at patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. But if you're watching later on YouTube, feel free to just click like and subscribe and support us that way. It means the absolute world. That's it for us. Have a fantastic rest of your gaming week and month. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.